All right, let's start. We built a new model. New model means a new video because there's some stuff we would like to discuss. As you can see, we built the first one for Solana. We did that because we told you guys. You guys told us to build this one. The next one will be Cardano, and the other ones are pretty close. So we don't really know which ones to go first. We'll just let the video comments decide. So if you have any favorites, just comment below. Let us know what next coin you would like to see. We'll probably publish those every few weeks.
Mm-hmm. And even better if you actually join Telegram and let us know there, because we do the polls there as well. So this is this is the poll we sent out over email, but we do them in Telegram as well for more stuff as well, actually. So definitely join there.
Exactly. With the release of more models, this sort of navigation is getting out of hand. So once all of this is live, what you will be seeing or navigating with is the risk dashboard. This is something we newly created, and essentially, of course, Bitcoin's the big one. You can see this one. Then we will have assets and more assets coming soon. In here, you will see your default strategies, and of course, you can use these links to navigate to the different models. Down below, small risk table. You might see some adjustments over time, but generally, we have the live risk, the risk change of percent, and the average risk of the last 30 days.
You can give a feedback on this as well. I mean, this isn't technically published when we publish this video, or when we publish the video, it probably will be. But yeah, feel free to let us know if we should add something, remove something, or define it differently.
Yeah, anything you need, just let us know. So let's talk about Solana. There are a few things we wanted to mention. This is, after all, not called model. Less data, more volatility. There's some stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's been sort of debated, these models for altcoins. For Bitcoin and ETH, it's much easier, a lot more data, more cycles, and so on. So a few people sort of asked, will it be a model per coin, per category of coins, like L2s, meme coins, and so on? That's what we thought at first. That's what we began experimenting with, was categorical classification of sorts. But it actually turned out pretty quickly that doing individual models actually performed a lot better. And the reason is that altcoins actually move a lot more independently than you'd think. We also had this preconceived notion where, well, they all move the same and you can just use a sort of general model for all the altcoins, which you probably could do quite well, but there was a significant bump in performance doing a unique model per coin. Obviously, everyone is going to wonder what it takes into account, and the answer is very similar to the answer for Bitcoin and ETH. It takes into account mostly price data, but altcoins are very different from Bitcoin and ETH. So, and this will be true for all the altcoin models, by the way. They do not only look at the data related to the individual altcoin, but also Bitcoin at ETH, and it actually also takes other alts into consideration. So for those of you who had that concern of building a unique model per coin, these altcoin models do take into account a considerable amount of quote-unquote general data related to other coins, to the market as a whole, and so on. What other stuff?
Well, there's stuff we don't take into account that you might believe might make sense to take into account, but once you start building these sort of models, you realize that you capture the information otherwise. A good example would be, well, there are talks of the Solana spot ETF going live. Well, how is that going to influence the metric? Does it take into account spot ETFs? Does it take into account when we have blockchain blackouts, which for Solana has been quite a lot? Stuff like that. We get asked pretty often. The simple answer is not really. We don't take it into account the way you would think. We don't measure exactly all of the inflows and outflows of each ETF. However, there's a more complicated answer. I guess you got to go on the Telegram.
Hmm. Well, and it's also the fact that a lot of these things are inherently captured in the metrics and data that we already use. So in some cases, it would be just duplicating data, and in other instances, it would make less sense from a fundamental perspective, because as you remember from the Bitcoin model, we do filter for data that, cannot easily be manipulated by third-party actors. It has to stay consistent over very long periods of time. We have given numerous examples of this in Telegram. You could just head in there and ask, and we'll link you to many, many examples. But that has been a question a lot of people ask naturally. It's like ETFs. And ETFs are a big deal now, but like down the line, how much of a big deal will the ETF be? Maybe not so much. And that's the sort of stuff that you have to take into account in order to not take them into account in a model.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's just, well, if it is, then it's going to be reflected on price, on volatility. This is still stuff we do measure. So at the end of the day, it all flows back into that. So we are capturing it, but not directly.
Yeah. And that fits in with the other disclaimer. This is an altcoin model. We are not magicians. We had much less data to work with, which means that this does not have the same confidence score as Bitcoin, for example, or ETH, which is also now reflected in the risk overview dashboard. This means that it is theoretically and practically possible that, in certain scenarios in the future, we might briefly fall off the metric, which means risk might be 100, but price keeps increasing briefly, or the opposite, risk is 0, but price keeps dropping for some amount of time. It doesn't impact the usefulness of the model at all, because you shouldn't use this model to, trade short term or use leverage or stuff like that. So it'll still be very robust. And as we mentioned in Telegram, the fact that it does take into account Bitcoin and ETH and other alts, we managed to achieve a much higher degree of robustness than we ever could expect. We might share some more data on that in Telegram as well for those interested.
Yep. I guess another disclaimer we need to make. So this model it's pretty short-lived. It's 4 years of data. But as you said, it's pretty robust. It takes into account other altcoins. But talking about altcoins in general, you need to be careful. And they will most likely behave very differently from what you'd expect in terms of, long-term development. You would expect, if you look at the Bitcoin model, you can sort of expect the cyclical nature, being a blue chip asset. Stuff like Solana, Cardano might be different. Looking at the past, Bitcoin has been a pretty safe investment so far. Of course, relatively safe in the crypto space. But it's very well possible that altcoins won't reach new heights. So your favorite altcoin might not actually reach 100 risk again. It's possible. If we look at, for example, Bitcoin, if you had invested at the very top in 2021, you've almost broken even, which I guess, we're happy with by now. But looking at ADA, for example, that you invested at the top, we're still down 87%.
Huge.
There's no telling. That's a huge difference. And there's no telling whether, is there another cycle left for any specific coin? That's beyond ourselves to answer. We can't really do it.
Yeah, no.
The way we built the models was that, the volatility flows into them. However, if you buy into an altcoin that's never going to recover and just slowly creep to zero, depending on how it creeps to zero, you might have some volatility that we capture with the risk, but there's a chance it's never going to reach 100 risk. So you should always just keep that in mind. Of course, if you're trading altcoins so far, you've been in here for 1 or 2 cycles, at least you know about the risks of trading these coins.
Yeah, great example is looking at coins that were in the top 10 in 2018. They are no longer to be seen. You can look at XRP, for example. It's still around, but it sort of had its glory days, and who knows what will happen. We're not in the business of making predictions here, but it's a great example of one of those coins that reached a quite staggering all-time high just to not reach it again, more or less. And someone asked that in Telegram, which was a great question, like, what if a coin crashes to zero? Well, no model can help you if things out of the very, very ordinary occur. Like, take Luna, for example. No model could essentially capture that. So what would have happened if we made a risk model for Luna is it would have for sure signaled very high risk, prompting you to sell, which is a very good thing. But once the sort of bank run happened, the model would have signaled zero risk, but price would have kept falling down to the, symbolic price that it is today. So keep that in mind, that all of our models assume that the asset will continue to remain in like a meaningful way within reason. We do not make any predictions about, price ranges, but if something like this happens to your favorite altcoin, no model will be able to help you, essentially. Very important to keep in mind.
Yeah. Maybe one more thing.
Yeah.
Risk and price correlation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is also a general thing for all models. People ask that sometimes, like price go up, but risk didn't go up as much, or risk even went down. That can happen, and it's natural if you think about it. Things that affect risk does not always affect price. Things can happen behind the scene, which massively drives up the risk, but doesn't really affect price too much, because price might be lagging behind, or it's just simply not reflected in price data. It's reflected in other types of data. So that is to be expected. They are highly correlated, but not perfectly correlated, and they should be.
Right. Okay. Any other updates? I guess there was one question, or actually a few Telegram. People asking about API updates. So as of now, you can grab the risk values for ETH and Bitcoin via the API. You can also fetch your strategies via the strategy name. Solana and the SPX are not yet available, but we've done quite some backend changes, which will probably prompt me to rewrite the API. You will in the future be able to fetch prices, fetch different risks, risk percentage changes. So yeah, you can look forward to that. Other than that, I don't think, there's more models coming, as we talked about.
Yeah. And other stuff, but nothing we can share for the very, very immediate future. But you can at least expect ADA in the next few weeks.
Few weeks sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay. Again,
all right.
If you watched to the end, thanks a lot. Let us know if you would like any other altcoin models. Just drop a comment, and we'll make sure to take that into consideration. Also, on Telegram, you can always speak to us, talk to us, to the community as well. It's getting pretty large now. A few hundred people there.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care, guys.